Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's session on HR strategy and trends in 2026. We're going to be navigating change, reducing burnout, and building resilience today. So I'm Phil Martin. I'm going to be your host today, and I'm going to be taking you through each of the speakers as they come. I'm head of product marketing here at Access, and I'll be your host for the next 45 minutes or so. Thank you for joining us. We know how busy January is for HR teams, so we've designed today's session to be practical and actionable with insights that can take you that you can take back to your business straight away. We've got three brilliant speakers lined up, each tackling a topic that's front of mind for HR leaders right now. So first, we'll hear from Bethan Rossen, our Employment Legal Counsel on the Employment Rights Act. She's going to cover what's changed, what's coming, and what you need to do about it. Then Verity O'Brien, our Global Employee Success Business Partner, will share practical strategies for tackling burnout and building employee engagement. And finally, Maria Dooley, our Senior Product Manager, will talk us through the AI revolution in HR. So how SMBs can start using AI practically without the enterprise level complexity. We'll wrap up with key takeaways and plenty of time for your questions. Speaking of which, you'll see on the right-hand side, there's a little chat box. You can please drop your questions in throughout the session, and we'll get to as many as possible in the Q&A at the end. Right, let's get into it. So the Employment Rights Act, if you've been following the news, you'll know this has been a topic for HR leaders' lips for the past year. To break this down, for us, I'm delighted to hand over to Bethan Rossen. Like I said earlier, Bethan's our Employment Legal Counsel at Access, and she's advising on employment law matters globally. So she's qualified and really good to answer any questions you have. So basically, she knows her stuff when it comes to navigating these changes. So Bethan, over to you.
You're too kind. Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. As mentioned, we're going to be going through the hottest topic in employment law. Some are calling it the biggest change of legislation in a generation, which is the Employment Rights Act 2025. So we'll take you through that now. Okay, so for a bit of background, it's always good to start with what is the Act? What are we talking about? So the bill itself was published on the 10th of October 2024, and it introduced 28 significant reforms to UK employment law. You would have heard a lot about this in the news. It was everywhere. The bill itself received royal assent on the 18th of December 2025, just before Christmas. So as employment lawyers were scrambling around at the end of the year trying to find out what was happening. Now the bill has passed, excuse me. The bill is now officially law and is called the Employment Rights Act. So what does this mean for you? So 28 major reforms are included within the Employment Rights Act that we'll go through. Luckily, it is a staggered implementation period spanning from April 2026 through to 2027, which is a relief as we were all wondering whether it was going to come all at once. Some changes are already in effect for employers and some are on the way. We'll give you a timeline later. Just to let you know, the Employment Rights Act, it is applicable to England, Wales, Scotland, but it is not applicable to Northern Ireland. And I've added a little key message there to keep fresh in your mind. This bill is not theoretical anymore. It is happening, it is now law, and it's time to get your systems up to speed. So let's have a look at the different types of changes under the Act. So the first category is day one rights. So statutory sick pay, known as SSP, is going to become a day one right for employees. Interestingly as well, the lower earnings limit has been removed. Another day one right, which is having a big impact, is paternity leave becomes a day one right. You may have seen in the news, actually, some industries are looking to expand their paternity leave, family leave clauses in accordance with maternity leave. That is not a requirement, but it is something that we're seeing as a trend. Unpaid parental leave also becomes a day one right. And flexible working requests, which you will already be aware of, becomes a day one right for your employees. So let's bear that in mind. The second category to move on to is enforcement. So something that's very interesting about the Employment Rights Act is the establishment of the Fair Work Agency. This is going to be a government-led, government-run agency that has extensive powers. What does that mean? Well, we're going to have to find out, but we've got some clues. What the Fair Work Agency can do is bring tribunal claims on behalf of workers. Us employment lawyers believe that the aim of this kind of body is to look to reduce certain claims at the employment tribunal. Think about pay claims, unlawful deduction from wages claims, things that aren't particularly about circumstances, they're more about facts and data. It will shift that burden off the tribunal system. And additionally, with this Fair Work Agency, financial penalties will be incurred for employers if the process that the Fair Work Agency sets out is not followed. Now, that all sounds a bit vague, but that's because that's the limited information we have at the moment. The third type of changes is trade unions. So electronic balloting is going to be introduced, a simplified recognition process, the duty to inform workers of union rights. So we're expecting there to be more union activity for employers that do not already recognise a union. There are various updates on industrial action and trade unions, to the point where I actually could have delivered a separate training session. Some of these have been enforced from the 18th of December 2025, and more are to come on the timeline. So at the bottom of the slide there, I've just added a little access tip for you, which is start thinking about reviewing your payroll systems, updating your contracts of employment, and preparing for the additional costs. So let's look ahead to 2026 for some of the other big changes under the Employment Rights Act. Fire and rehire is going to become automatically unfair to dismiss and re-engage on worse terms. You may well have seen lots of highly publicised claims in the news about fire and rehire. It is becoming quite the dated practice, as it has so many risks established with it. The exception of the use of fire and rehire is financial collapse of a business. But just to reiterate the first bullet point, using fire and rehire to dismiss employees will become automatically unfair, meaning that they won't need any service requirement to make that claim at an employment tribunal. Fire and rehire will cover replacing employees with contractors. That's something a lot of large employers do regularly that we're going to need to take into account. Harassment. You will have seen over the years that the employment law sphere has made great strides in improving the rules regarding harassment that employers need to follow. For example, the duty to take all reasonable steps to prevent The duty to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment has been introduced. So employers are going to be expected to do more to make sure that is not happening in your workplace, and that any acts of harassment are addressed correctly. Third-party harassment liability is going to be coming into force, and whistleblowing protection for reports is going to be enhanced. A large one for 2026 is tribunal time limits. So currently, an employee has 3 months, technically 3 months minus 1 day, if you want to get proper, to bring an employment tribunal claim. The bill is looking to extend this to 6 months. So employees have a much longer period of time to consider whether they want to take any form of litigation. That's something employers are going to have to bear in mind. Trade unions, as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of trade union industrial action updates. There's increased access rights to place of employment and employees. So you may well be expecting trade unions to start turning up at your door looking to recruit members, and the rules regarding that. Collective redundancy. So the protective award has been doubled from 90 days to 180 days. That will have a large financial impact for employers. Cash tips. So this is not necessarily relevant to every industry, but there's going to be consultation requirements introduced about employees not receiving their cash tips. So think about hospitality. The next, I think we've gone ahead. Thank you. Where are we now? Yep, thank you. So looking ahead for 2027. This is the big one that everybody's talking about, unfair dismissal. So under the bill, before the law became an act, we were expecting that unfair dismissal was going to be a day one right. So now there is going to be day one protection, but with an initial 6-month period. What does that mean? It means that employers are going to have to utilise this initial period, i.e. probation periods, to really decide whether the employees that you hire are a good fit for your business. We're expecting this initial period to be a light touch procedure rather than a full disciplinary dismissal process. Redundancy is going to be excluded from this element of the Act because that's going to be seen as a separate entity. 0 hours. So for any employers out there that have 0 hours employees, the right to guaranteed hours after a 12-week reference period, you're going to have your schedules and rotas much more up to date, and providing reasonable notice of shifts changing or coming into force. Again, being more prepared, using your systems to help you. Compensation for short notice cancellations. That's a big one for anybody that uses 0 hours. Currently, that's not the position. If you are offering a 0 hour shift and you don't need it anymore, you can take it back. There are now going to be compensation requirements for that employee. Flexible working is a big one, and it's going to become a day one right for employees. And refusals must be reasonable. That is a favourite word that you'll see lawyers using all the time. It has to be reasonable and not just based on the 8 statutory grounds of refusal. You're going to have to provide written explanations of reasonableness. So explain yourself. How have you come to that decision that that flexible working request either is allowed or is not allowed? Equality. So gender pay action plans are going to be put in place and are going to be mandatory for employers that have over 250 employees. So start thinking about your gender pay gap of salaries, benefits between your colleagues. Menopause action plans are going to be required. We're seeing more cases of menopause under disability discrimination claims as well. And contract worker reporting. More reporting on who you're bringing into the business, whether an employee, or a consultant or contractor. So I've just given you quite a lot of information in a quick snapshot. So I've put together a compliance roadmap with immediate actions for 2026, actions before April 2026, before October 2026, and before 2027. The 2027 element of this roadmap doesn't have months confirmed yet. It is a bit more of an open 2027. So let's take a look at these in turn. I may have a look at my other screen just because I've included a lot of information on the slide there for you. So immediate actions for 2026, start auditing your probation period procedures. What have you currently got in place? What clauses, what processes? Review your SSP calculation processes. Make sure they are correct, because that's going to be more prevalent as a day one right. Check your union-related policies. Before April 2026, conduct harassment risk assessments within your business. What are you currently doing to prevent any forms of harassment of your employees? And when allegations are made, are you following a proper procedure? Have you got policies in place? Review any fire and rehire documentation. Update your settlement agreement templates to reflect any of the Act and any new circumstances. Prepare for extended tribunal time limits. So keep in mind, if you are exiting employees, or otherwise if they have discrimination claims, they have a longer period of time to consider making claims. Before October 26, update payroll systems for those SSP changes, and Access can help you with that. Implement union notification processes and train managers on day one family rights. Make sure your managers and leaders are aware of the changes the Act brings and get them up to speed in advance. Before 2027, redesign probation management because it's kicking into gear. Implement 0 hours tracking systems. Access can help there too. Enhance flexible working procedures and prepare gender pay action plans. So Access is here to support you with, of course, both software solutions and expert guidance. I would start focusing on navigating probation changes, managing SSP compliance, tracking 0 hours, and get started on gender pay gap reporting. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to hand over back to my colleagues for the rest of the presentation.
Thanks, Beth. And that was really clear and great to run through the compliance roadmap. The timelines are key. What do you need to start focusing on right now? The key message I'm taking from that is that this isn't theoretical anymore. The Act is law, and the clock is ticking. So having your systems and processes ready is going to make a real difference. So thank you very much. I'd like to also thank Michelle in the chat for asking our first question. And to quickly answer that one, everyone will receive an email to watch this on demand after the webinar. But just a reminder for everyone else, if anything that Beth has said there has sparked a question, please pop it in the chat and we'll try and cover it in the Q&A. Anyway, now speaking of challenges facing HR teams, our next topic is one that affects every business, but hits SMBs particularly hard, and that's burnout and employee engagement. So now we're going to be going to hear from Verity O'Brien. Verity is our global employee success business partner here at Access. So she sees firsthand what works and what doesn't when it comes to keeping people energized and productive. So Verity, over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Good morning, everyone. I'm hoping you can all hear me because I can't see any of you, which doing this type of webinar is something actually I haven't done in a while. So hopefully I get invited back depending on the type of job I do this morning. So we'll see. So as Phil said, I'm the one of the global employee success business partners here at the Access Group. I support the Access People Division and the Territory of Ireland. And what I wanted to say before we get into the main element of the presentation is that here at Access, we are a large organisation, but we deliberately structure ourselves into software companies that think like SMEs. That's because we truly believe that's where the strategic advantage is. And over the next few slides, I want to share some practical thinking on engagement in smaller businesses. Not theory, but what actually moves the needle and hopefully validate some of the instincts that you're already acting on. So thank you, Phil. Seamless slide driving there. So why engagement matters more in SMEs? And we've all seen these stats before. The UK is one of the least engaged workforces in Europe. Engaged businesses, 21% more profitable, 58% of employees just want to be asked how they feel about their work and their role that they play for you. Now, that's not new to us, but here's what the challenge is when you're an SME in particular. The stakes are always higher. So in a team of 50 people, 3 disengaged individuals is 6% of your workforce. In a team of 5,000, that effect is lessened significantly. In an SME, you definitely feel it more. And I have worked in different parts of my career in SMEs and in large organisations, and I've definitely noticed the change in how that plays out. Faster contagion. So what do I mean by that? I wanted to write mood hoovers, but I wasn't sure how well that would have been received on my professional slides. But in essence, what I mean is negativity can spread much more quickly when one person is clearly disengaged from their work. This also, however, can be flipped around and favour you because energy can be galvanised at a much faster rate. So you have the two sides of the coin. When individuals are disengaged, that can spread, but when everybody is engaged and working towards the same goals, that energy is palpable and you can really feel it and see it in the teams. And of course, there's a bigger upside, and this is really the part that I want you to hold on to. Alignment is so much easier to achieve. You can turn a team around in months and not years. I've seen it in an area of the business that I look after, a 39-point EMPS swing in under 12 months with just a single leadership change. And that doesn't happen often in large corporate companies. It happens when you operate at SME pace. And as I said earlier, at Access, we structured deliberately into software companies. We do that because we want to keep the agility. We want to be able to move fast on decisions, to know our people within those areas, and to course correct quickly. That's not a limitation of being smaller. I truly believe this is the advantage. And if you're sat listening to me right now in a smaller business, feeling like you can't compete with the big players on engagement, really work on flipping that thinking. You are poised to create some of the most engaged workforces and some of the most engaged teams that we have. Okay, slide 3. What actually drives engagement? Lots of people on this call will be reading these 6 drivers and thinking they don't necessarily seem new to me. So the idea of purpose, of growth, of recognition, of manager relationships, of voice and autonomy, of psychological safety. We all know them. We've seen them play out before our eyes, but we also know how important they are in businesses. And here's the question that I feel is worth asking really about this. Where you sit right now in your organisation, in your seat, which one is your bottleneck right now? Because trying to fix all 6 things at once is how, unfortunately, engagement initiatives wither and die. You spread yourselves too thinly. Nothing then shifts. The leadership teams lose faith, and then the programme gets shelved. And that's something that we feel truly can be so disheartening, because as HR professionals, we work tirelessly to create teams who are engaged, who enjoy coming to work, and who deliver for our business. And we really want to see these type of initiatives fly and succeed. So I thought about maybe a practical way to diagnose whether or not some of your engagement survey tools and tricks and tips, I suppose, are working. If you have a survey in place at the minute, something simple as making sure that all of the leaders within those areas look at the survey comments, not just the scores. The scores tell you there's a problem, but the comments will tell you what that problem is. And if you don't have a tool that you use, you can arrange focus groups. You can actively seek out the opinions of those who you feel are, with you, and those who aren't. In my experience, the manager relationship element of this slide is the multiplier. You get that right and the others will start to move. If you get it wrong, I believe that no amount of purpose statements or recognition programs will compensate for where that is, areas that need to be worked on. And again, Leaders who succeed in fast-paced SME environments tend to operate on what I refer to as the high challenge, high support. They push for performance, but they bring their people with them. They have empathy for the pressure their teams are under, but they still hold the line. And that's the balance your managers need to feel. Maria is going to talk after me on the AI transformation in HR. And there is a lot of literature coming out at the minute around empathetic leaders being truly the ones that are successful in an AI transformative world, because they understand the impact it's having on their teams and individuals, and they have the clarity and the empathy to lead those teams through this period of change that we're all experiencing. Slide 4, please, Phil. Thank you very much. So when engagement fails, what is the real cost? And we talk about burnout a lot within the press, within the media, within the profession. And I want to call out that this slide frames burnout as a symptom of disengagement, not the cause. And that matters. If you treat burnout as the problem, you'll end up with wellbeing initiatives that don't address why people are burning out in the first place. And then you have this cascade effect, which I'm sure, we've all, can probably see playing out in our work lives at the minute. You can have individuals where there is a workload imbalance. So the engaged people pick up the slack and they burn out. A competency tax is paid for those individuals who you really require to lean on to deliver. You can then have, cultural issues. One disengaged person affects everybody around them. The customer impact. Clients will notice when your teams have checked out. The retention spiral, and probably for me, this is one of the worst things that we see as HR practitioners. The best people leave first. Replacing them then, puts an additional cost spike on the bottom line, and true knowledge, critical knowledge walks out the door and is very difficult to replace. The final thing that I want to call out around engagement is that not every low score is always a leadership failure. Sometimes those low scores can be reflective of lots of different things. It could be change driven. It could be restructures, strategy pivots, office move, restructures. If a team is going through a lot all at once, the score will naturally tend to dip. That in itself isn't a problem. The question is whether you're being transparent. Are you involving the people around them? Are you giving those teams a line of sight through to the other side of what you see is the next steps? And that's what recovers trusts. That's then how your scores will then start to uptick once you do those things. So then finally, building the case and taking action. There are 5 actions on this slide, and I want to provide, I suppose, a shortcut, in my opinion, to those 5 things, notwithstanding they're all equally important. Start with leader capability. If your managers within your businesses aren't equipped to have honest conversations, to give feedback and hold performance while supporting their people, all a pulse survey will do, or employee forums or feedbacks or 360, whatever you do, all they will do is just keep telling you that you have a problem. That the survey is a diagnostic, not the cure. Leader capability is the foundation and everything else builds on that. So my second piece of advice from my experience is pick one lever of those things, not the 5. Whatever is your lowest scoring driver within your own area, go after that. Show progress, then move on to the next. The same applies for feedback collected in focus groups or outside of survey software. And then when you're building the case to the leadership teams, speak their language, link engagement to retention, to productivity, to revenue. CFOs, in my experience, do not fund programs that are nice to have. They fund what they see as true business outcomes. And then finally, remember that the one advantage that we have when we operate in this way is that we can move faster. We can align quicker, and a decision made today can, be implemented next week, next month. That is actually a real advantage in this ever-changing world. And then if you leave today with one thing, it would be to trust your instincts on this. If you think leader capability is an issue, it probably is. If you think there is a team struggling because of change, dig into that before you blame the situations around them. And if you think engagement matters to business performance, the data backs you up, and you're absolutely not wrong in that thinking. And hopefully that's it from me, Phil. Thank you.
Thanks, Verity. Some really, really practical quick wins there. I particularly like the point about finding your bottlenecks and looking into comments and not just scores. I think that's a really great example there. And also pick your lever and focus on it, and trusting your instincts. I really like that coming through. So do keep your questions coming through in the Q&A, guys. We've got a good chunk of time at the end to get through them. I can see there's a few coming in, but yeah, keep them coming so we can try and answer those things that are on your mind. So now we've covered the regulatory landscape and people challenges. Let's talk about one of the biggest opportunities for HR teams in 2026, and that's AI. Now, I know AI can feel like a buzzword for a lot of SMEs. It can seem like something that only big enterprises with big budgets can take advantage of. But what Maria is going to show us is that it's really not the case anymore. Maria is our senior product manager here at Access. She spent 6 years here working hands-on with HR software and HR teams across small and medium businesses. And our current focus is on building AI-powered HR tools. So she's the expert here. So Maria, over to you. Tell us about AI.
Yeah, thanks for this great intro. And I'm going to double down on AI and calling it a revolution at the minute. It's a big word, but I want to really break it down into a very real world examples of how it's being used today in SMEs. And as a product manager, I spend a lot of my time talking to SME HR teams about what's working and what's painful, and looking at designing and building solutions that's going to help them tackle those issues. So we're just going to talk through a way that SMEs can approach AI in a way that's simple, safe, and genuinely helpful for them and their people. So let's get into it. As you can see from the slide, AI adoption in SMEs is already well underway. So whether organizations have planned it or not, it's happening. Most of us have probably already used AI in work in some form. So maybe you've used it to just get through a long email a bit faster, summarize a policy, maybe to draft a job ad. You're probably using it outside of work as well for simple things like getting recipes for dinner and things like that. So people are using it, and the upside is clear. So we're seeing huge productivity gains, that 133%. But the risk is often that it's happening without any guidance. And when AI use is completely ad hoc, that's when issues around data, consistency, and trust start to creep in. So we can help you there with that in Access. We have a very secure way of using AI within our products, and we're continuously building as this technology is growing and advancing. It's changing all the time. So we're on that to make sure that we're passing on those productivity gains to HR teams. So the real opportunity here is moving AI from something people are quietly using to something the business actively supports and governs. So let's get a bit more into the SME advantage around here, because the good news is that, just on to the next slide. The good news, and this is something the slide really brings out, is that SMEs are actually in a brilliant position when it comes to AI. So smaller teams, fewer decision makers, and faster change cycles means that you can try things, learn quickly, and see value fast. You don't need a huge transformation program to get started. AI works best in SMEs when it helps people spend less time on admin and more time on the work that actually matters. So strategy, people, and decision making, things that are really going to grow your business and your people. So simple, well-placed AI usually beats big, complicated AI every time. And I know it's all about time saving really for SMEs, isn't it? We know that everyone is incredibly busy. So anywhere we can shave off those minutes on your day-to-day mundane tasks is a massive win for you and the business as a whole. So what's important is, starting with HR, is practical AI applications. HR is often the easiest and most impactful place to begin, mainly because the problems are so familiar. Things like screening CVs, answering the same questions over and over, or manually managing onboarding tasks. So having a HR chatbots for your kind of first line HR queries in Access, you can upload all your policy documents, and your employees are able to ask questions of a chatbot that will go and reference your policy documents. So they're not constantly emailing or calling you saying, "Oh, how many holidays can I carry over to next year?" They can ask that simple question to a chatbot and get that directly from your policies. As you can see, some of the other examples, AI can help with speeding up recruitment and content creation, answering common HR and payroll questions instantly, guiding onboarding based on role or department, and spotting patterns around engagement, retention, or skills gaps as well. None of this replaces human judgment. I think is really important. This is to work alongside you and help you do your job to the best of your ability. It just gives you and your team a bit of breathing room, which I think we can be honest, most HR teams could use a bit more breathing room and a bit more time to focus on what really matters to them. So when it comes to AI implementation, I think it's best to take this from small first steps. I think one of the biggest myths around AI is that you need to do everything at once and you need to be on top of it and fully ahead. In reality, and this is exactly what this slide is getting at, the best approach is to start small and start where you already are. Chances are your employees are already using AI tools today. So the first steps are actually quite human ones. So set up some simple guidelines, be open and transparent with your employees, and understand what's already happening around the business. And this is where Access Evo can support the journey. So Evo brings AI into a trusted HR and payroll platform, built in, not bolted on. You're not going to a third party and people are uploading documents and data that you really don't want them putting anywhere else. It's all within your own environment, and it helps guide people to the right actions, surface insights at the right time, and make sure AI is used responsibly, most importantly. So rather than adding more tools, Evo is going to work quietly in the background, supporting your teams in the flow of their work day to day. So it becomes part of your normal day-to-day life. It just changes your landscape, and you can see the productivity gains that can be brought from that. I know I can't imagine myself doing my job without it now. So I think the goal with AI isn't to be cutting edge, it's to be usefully ahead. And that's exactly where SMBs can win. So that's it from me today on AI. I think, there's lots of efficiency to be gained there from SMBs. And it would be great to reach out for you all to reach out, and we can talk some more about Access Evo and how that can help you on your AI transformation journey as well. Back to you, Phil.
Thanks, Maria. Thanks for that. Really useful to see the approach to implementation, and taking small steps. So let's try and pull this all together. We've covered a lot of ground today, but if I had to sum it up into three big themes, on the Employment Rights Act, the time to prepare is now. The changes are staggered through 2026 and 2027, which gives you a window, but some things are already in effect. So, start to think about what you're going to be doing there. On engagement, small changes can have a big impact. Pulse surveys, meaningful one-to-ones, manager training to spot warning signs. So all good there. And on AI, I mean, this one's really, really important, but your people are probably already using it. So whether you know it or not, so get ahead, get some clear guidelines, and start with admin tasks that will eat up time. Cool. So now we've talked about everything today, compliance, engagement, AI, and AI. These are all the areas in which you're having the tools to make a difference. So if we move on to the next slide, please. We just wanted to cover quickly, our suite and our Access. We've built People HR specifically for businesses like yours. It brings together HR, payroll, and the functionality you need to stay compliant and save time, including the AI features that Maria was just walking us through. We're not going to do a huge sales pitch today. This is more about sharing information. But if any of this has resonated with you, our team will be happy to show you how it all works in practice, and there'll be follow-up information to follow. So right, that brings us to the part that I've been looking forward to. Let's dig into some of your questions. I think we've had a few in the chat, so I'll start with you, Bethan, and give Maria time to see the questions coming through. So Bethan, we've had a question on the Employment Rights Act. So it's as the Employment Rights Act is moving forward, where should HR teams like mine be going for the most reliable updates and implementation guidelines?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's so much information out there. It can be a little bit overwhelming for us. At the moment, my advice to you would be to stick to the facts. The government is going to be releasing updates on the Act, dates, details regularly. So keep an eye on, I know it sounds ordinary, but keep an eye on gov.uk, keep an eye on any of those like Act update documents that come out. That's the key starter. But also there are a lot of employment lawyers and barristers that have a particular interest in the Employment Rights Act that are sharing loads of information as soon as it hits. So keep in touch with those, sign up to some of those email blasts. I know I do. And then a lot of you will be using LinkedIn. It is a wonderful resource. So I myself will be posting updates on the Employment Rights Act where possible. And yeah, just keep an eye out because the updates are coming thick and fast.
Excellent. Thanks, Bethan. Verity, if I can bring you back in as well. We've had a few questions on engagements and some really nice comments in there. So the first one I'm going to ask you is, what would you say are the top 3 questions that employees want to be asked in engagement surveys?
Excellent question, Phil. Okay, so I think just to caveat that with that question with whenever you're thinking about implementing an engagement survey, or if you have one already within your organisation, ensure that the questions that you ask the employees are aligned with the strategic values and the goals of your organisation, because ultimately the engagement score is an output of all of the things that we do within the HR department to, provide that to the business. So the two things have to be aligned. We can't just ask one set of questions to the employees that then we can't translate back into business actions and goal orientated initiatives off the back of it. So once you have that alignment, I think where I see the most engagement in the questions, one is how would you recommend Access as a place to work? And we use the Net Promoter Scale for that, which is a very standardized method of assessing whether somebody is a detractor, a passive, or a promoter within your organisation. And that's our sort of North Star metric. So, we have that at board level. Our investors look at that metric because they truly want to see that Access is a great place to work for everybody that comes to work here and that we're living our values. So the first one is, how likely is it that you would recommend your place of work to a family or a friend? Based on what I said in the presentation, I think their management support. So actually, how do they rate their support of their managers? What could we be doing better from that element to drive better engagement? Everybody has a view on their leadership teams, on their direct managers. So definitely that one. How well they fit within the organisation. So you're checking that the individuals that you have within your workforce are aligned to your goals. So do they feel they fit as an organisation? And you can also dovetail that question into some specific diversity and inclusion metrics if you track those. So that's a really good question to ask. And then finally, I would say recognition. So do the employees feel that they are recognised for their good work? Do they feel valued? Are there things in place that showcase the best of what they achieve for the company? Recognition is a real great part to motivate the workforce and translate that into true sort of engagement metrics. So that is what I would suggest as a starting place.
Thanks, Verity. And while I've got you here, I'm going to ask you another one. So someone's asked. Someone's interested to hear what your thoughts are in terms of driving engagement across multi-generations in a workplace. Gen Z will favour perhaps purpose, but actually now trust in their leaders and could be more top in the priority list. I'm not sure if you got any of that word soup, but hopefully you've got a question there. I've just butchered, so apologies to who asked that.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent question. Good instincts on that question, I think. So the generational divide can often be a bit of a red herring. And what I mean by that is that, yes, there are definite nuances between the generations that come through the workforce and what they ultimately want to get from their employer and what they're prepared to give to their employer. You know, the boomers that entered the workforce 40 years ago were guaranteed a job for life in some industries and never had to think about what they might do next. The Gen Zs that are entering now and the generations after that are not guaranteed the same the same things. They're going to have to be thinking about what skills can they learn from each business they're in to make them succeed in the future. There is no guarantees, I think, in any sector that gives that longevity that the boomers had or previous generations had. But in terms of what they still want from their employer, their workforce, is ultimately, you know, we all have those true humanistic values. So we want to be able to trust our employer and our colleagues. We want to have clarity in where we're going, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. We want to have fairness. We want to feel that actually we're being rewarded for the effort that we put in. So they apply across every generation. And I think you can have the consistency in leadership that will then deliver those things, and then irrespective of the generation that you are in, that will hold true. And I think probably my final point on that would be that the generation Gen Z, they're going to be much quicker to call you out when things are not going right, because they have come from a generation where information is in abundance and they are using AI to a technical proficiency like we've not seen before. So you have to, you know, balance the fact that you're going to have probably more challenge. You're going to have people fact checking what you say. You're going to have, you know, individuals that notice if there isn't true alignment. But if you stick to those four things, trust, clarity, fairness, and feeling rewarded, I think that transitions any generation.
Thanks, Verity. Appreciate that. I'll let you off the hook now. I'll ask one more question for Maria. So the question in the chat is, which HR provider in the marketplace is the most advanced with adopting AI into its platform?
Yeah, good question. And I think, you know, Access Group is one of the most advanced HR providers in the SMB and mid-market when it comes to practical AI adoption. Now, we've embedded it internally in our own practices in all our departments and how we're working, and we just want to really pass those time savings on to our customers. So we're doing that by embedding AI directly into your everyday workflows. So we're automating admin and guiding decisions and genuinely helping improve HR efficiency. And there's a lot of exciting stuff to come very soon down the line as everything is evolving. So I think we're really leading on that from a thought leadership perspective. And yeah, it's really exciting to see where we're taking the product now with all this new tech. So yeah, I'm Team Access for sure.
Thanks, Maria, and brilliant. Thank you for all those questions, and I really want to say thank you to our speakers, Bethan, Verity, and Maria, for such great practical and useful insights that they've been sharing today. A quick reminder, I know I covered it earlier, but we will be sending out the recording and slides after today's session, along with some additional resources to support you on the topics that we've covered. So thank you very much for enjoying. Thank you very much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you at the next one. Thank you. Goodbye.